Hello and welcome to Apex Instant Tips, episode 119, brought to you most Fridays at 12:05 Eastern Time. I'm your host, Anton. Hayden, thanks for joining us this week.
Great to be here, Anton. Today we have some trivia for our audience. Nothing important, certainly, but interesting nonetheless.
Well, my blog is titled apexdebug.com, and I realized I hadn't dug into the APEX Debug API in quite a while, and the intricacies of it. And so today's tip is a series of, as you said, trivia questions about the APEX, about what happens with APEX Debug and what ends up in the log, that kind of thing. So
yeah, things that have been nagging me about APEX Debug that we finally took the trouble to discuss.
All right. Well, so what's one of your first questions? Or trivia questions, that is.
Yeah. I have the experience that sometimes I am my APEX application, by all appearances, is functioning perfectly. However, I will see that there's a debug log with some red errors in it. So what gives? Why does that happen?
All right, well, let's kick off our timer. We've got 5 minutes. Let's see how many trivia questions we can get through. We'll kick it off now. I have a page right here. If I refresh this page, apparently no errors, and I'm not in debug mode, mind you. There's no, debug is turned off, but if I view my debug, not only do I have a page identifier, it has a link. When I click the link, I get this message. So what's going on here is if you reference a page item to get its value, and the page item doesn't exist, you get this. It's logged as a debug level 1, which is error in the parlance of Apex. Right here, all I'm doing is this right here. I get this error message in my log, but if I did it the other way, if I tried to assign this, then I would have a catastrophic error. It would raise to the screen. It wouldn't be silent in this case. But I have to say, I think this really is a bug in your code.
Yeah, maybe they should, in fact, raise the error.
Yeah, I get a very similar looking one when I use certain template types. I get certain errors that look very similar to that when I use a region type, but I don't think there's anything wrong at all.
Let me demo that example. So now we're looking at my screen. Again, just as in the example that Anton just gave, there's nothing apparently wrong with my application. I'm not in debug mode. However, if I check debug, I will see that I do have a debug log. And in the debug log, it'll give me some complaint about a missing field. So what is happening here is I'm using the timeline template, courtesy of the Apex universal theme, and I am failing to specify the event link field. So I'm using all the other fields except event link. That error won't be raised for every missing field, but some of them it will raise an error for.
And you don't actually need a link. So to me, I think the Apex developer that pushed that to the log is an error. I don't think it's an error.
An interesting question. A final example, we're a little short on time, is sometimes I will notice, and I don't have a demo for this, sometimes in my debug log, I'll see an error related to no data needed. It's a little bit arcane and specific, but I'll just mention that it's an error raised when you put a predicate against a table function such that it doesn't actually complete its all of the code within the pipeline function.
Right, and really, SQL just swallows that error like a no data found. SQL doesn't raise no data founds, but PL SQL will. Weird scenarios when you get one or the other. All right, let's see. Go ahead.
So next question is, why does some of my logs show up in black and some of it shows up in red and sometimes it's bolded?
Excellent. Right. So the red, if the log level is 1 or 2, it will be red and bold. If your log level is 3, it will be bold but not red.
So let me demo that. So, oh, and I need to. Force these two.
Ah, that's a whole other thing, force.
Which we will immediately get to. But let me just demo what you just said, Anton. So now when I look at debug log, I will see that, yes, so 1 through 3 are bolded, 1 through 2 are red, and then anything above 3 is just regular text.
Right, but you're not in debug mode, so why are these showing up in your debug log, even though you're not in debug mode?
Right, so the audience already knows at this point, it's because I forced it. So there are a couple of ways of invoking the APEX Debug API. There's APEX Debug procedure, named procedure error warn. There's essentially doing the same thing, but via message, where you specify the log. These actually are doing the exact same thing. So warn and message, but with the warn level, are equivalent.
But you have to push warn and error automatically force it if you use the procedure or warn error, but in message it doesn't. Yeah,
that's right. So that answers that question.
So I have one more piece of trivia. We've just hit our limit, but I have one more piece of trivia that I think is worth talking about. So I'm going to ask our audience: is it okay if I go over the 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Let me know if it's not. Shout out if it's not okay. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna show one more thing, and this one is really kind of weird. And it's, let me share my screen. Sometimes you ever get that red triangle right here?
Yep.
Yeah. So what causes that red triangle is when a dynamic action has an error. If your dynamic action has an error and that error is forced in. So this one would not cause that red triangle. If I did this, it would cause the red triangle. Or if I did this, it would cause the red triangle. Because really, these two are essentially equivalent. If I do error and I do one in force, that's the same thing. So, but that's not enough. So
I'm going to do a demo of the red triangle.
Well, yes, I'm going to do that right now. In fact, I'm going to say okay to this. I'm going to remove this right here, and it won't have the red triangle. So I'm going to click me, no red triangle. As soon as I put this item to return back here, that means Apex is going to return something as part of this server-side dynamic action. So now when I do the click me, I get the red triangle, right? And the red triangle, if you dig into it, the red triangle tells you to open the console. If you open the console, here we go. The console is going to tell me there was an error. If I click on the error, I get all the way to here. This is an error. So these two are what did it. So is this an error? Isn't it an error? I don't know, right? But that's what forces this little red triangle to happen is if there's a server-side condition. Yeah.
And it's only in dynamic actions.
It's only in things that have a server-side that call back out and do that. So if you submit your page, you'll sometimes see that little thing flash for an instant because Apex actually does the equivalent of a dynamic action. When you hit a submit button, it does a dynamic action, does whatever your processing is, and then redirects the page. So you might see that little triangle for just an instant, but then the page will continue going. And it's because you have these warns you have forced errors. Warnings won't cause that triangle, only level 1. So either of these things will cause the triangle.
Well, I think that was worth going over time for.
All right. So I have a whole bunch more of these things. I dug into this API, and I've got more little trivia things, but well, we really only have 5 minutes. So there you go. Yeah. Hayden, we have one other special guest today. I didn't even warn you, but Mishka, our superhero of the day. Hello, Mishka.
Hi, guys. So thank you for letting me use your super duper platform to promote. I've got a community event to promote. Is that okay?
Of course, please.
All right. So let me quickly share my screen. So Philip Hartenfeller from MTIT has recently launched the template component plugin challenge. So
I'm just realizing I'm not going to get my Apex points for this show because we're highlighting a vendor.
No, this is the opposite of highlighting a vendor. We are not highlighting a vendor. This is a community challenge, very much community based. So it is, yes, hosted on a vendor's site. We hope we'll get a pass for that. But Philip has taken the initiative of launching a challenge. So for those of you that don't know, the latest version of Apex 23.1 has this new architecture, template components, and he's inviting the Apex community to come up and share template components. So I'm going to put the link for the challenge in the comments right now. The rules are very simple. It's going to go up until the end of October 31st. They need to be hosted, available on Apex World. It has to be open source, available on GitHub. A demo on apex.oracle.com must exist. So it sounds like a lot of rules, very simple. There's some great prizes to be had, up to 850 euros, which I think translates to about $1 million US Canadian dollars.
Wow. All right.
It's definitely worth it. There's some different judges. I'm one of the judges, but really hoping that the community gets behind this initiative. I believe the last time I checked, Matt Nolan was still the only, not Matt Nolan. Matt Mulvaney, I'm sorry, Matt, forgive me, has submitted 2. They are available on apex.world. So we need other people to submit.
So I promised to submit the plugin component I did recently.
Awesome. Awesome. And I saw in our internal INSIM chat, I think Velimir has something interesting that he'll be putting there. So it's a great way to get the community sharing great components. It's a real great testament to the power of Apex's architecture that we can develop these things and share them. So yeah, go ahead and submit to the challenge. I see Manuel, at least Manuel, Fernando, and Spinello watching Apex Instant Tips today. So I hope I'll see submissions from at least the 3 of you before the end of October. So there we go. That's what I wanted to share.
Our vast audience is going to overwhelm the systems, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, all right.
Well, exciting stuff.
Well, 850 euros. That's
submitting?
legit.
Yeah.
850 euros. That's legit from a prize perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you like getting prizes and all the rest, like, subscribe, hit the splat, whatever those things are. Yeah. Write your letter to mom. Tell her about the show.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.